Hey, good morning guys, Tush coming at you. Tuesday, April 16th, just after 7:30 a.m. Another cold day outside today, 1 degree Celsius so far. Hopefully it gets a little warmer today. Anyway, we're just about to start the drifter project, and we got to figure out a way to situate this in the garage so that we can start stripping it apart. And obviously if I get it up on the stand, I'm going to want to leave it up on the stand, so I have to situate it in such a way that I won't have to move it once the tires are off. So I want to leave myself enough room to do some painting and priming. So we'll have to figure out where we're going to actually stick the bike so we can get to both sides of it, and where we won't have to move it after, and where we'll be able to give ourselves some working space. So garage space is a little tight. I could probably move the 250 project over to the right a little bit more, but I don't really want to do that. So I think we'll just work with the space that we have. Anyway, we'll get to situating the bike where we need to be, and then we'll work on getting it up on the lift. I'm not sure if there's going to be any mods that I need to do to the lift. We'll have to wait and see. I might have to build something custom to get it to sit safely on that lift, but we'll figure that out when we get there. Alright guys, job one is done. We've got the bike up on the lift and strapped down securely. So it takes a little bit of effort on this bike since it's got that monoshock. It's actually got some grease zerks on the bottom of the monoshock. At least I believe it's the monoshock. And it sort of prevents the, you obviously don't want to jack up on a zerk point. So you have to sort of fiddle a bit between the zerk fitting, and then there's a switch for the kickstand. So I guess it prevents you from moving or starting the bike if the kickstand, actually moving the bike, if the kickstand is down. So it's got a switch on there that you have to avoid as well, otherwise you risk breaking it. So anyway, we've got it strapped down, so it's nice and solid. We've got a little piece of 2x4 underneath the rear wheel just to give it a little bit more solid feel on the rear end, keep it from tipping back and forth. So yeah, that looks good. So I guess we'll start to work on it. Alright, so the first thing to come off this bike is going to be that seat. So I don't have a manual yet for this bike. I've got one on order. I've got a Vulcan 800 manual. It doesn't necessarily always cover all the Vulcan drifter bits like the fenders or the seat removal, but I think the seat removal is going to be fairly straightforward once we get into it. We'll just obviously unbolt the appropriate bolts. We'll probably start with the backrest piece, and then we'll go after the two-up seat piece and remove that. Make sure we bag and photograph everything so we can get it back together in the appropriate locations. Obviously the seat's not going back on, but we'll keep all the hardware. We might need some of it to put the solo seat on. So we'll go ahead and remove that. The first thing I wanted to do actually was to get into the side cover that's on the bike, and it's a locking side cover. And I was having trouble actually getting it off before, so I read the, I do have a copy of the owner's manual. So I read the owner's manual. It's a little bit tricky to get off. Anyway, we've got it off. And the good thing is, I found the stock toolkit, which I didn't think I had. The toolkit is actually supposed to be stored on the other side. There's a locking compartment for the toolkit here, right there. So I'd messaged the previous owner and said, do you happen to have the toolkit? Because I know there's a wrench in here, for example, to adjust the monoshock. Anyway, he said he didn't have it, so I guess he didn't know it was in this compartment over here. Anyway, we'll see what we got as far as tools are concerned within this pouch. Well, that's definitely cool. Looks like I have the complete kit. Doesn't look like it's even being used, so yeah, that's a big bonus. I'm happy to have that. So yeah, it's quite a complete little pouch with all the necessary metric wrenches. Looks like a spark plug tool. That might be the one of these is probably the monoshock tool. Obviously a little handle for the screwdriver bits, pair of pliers. Yeah, there you go. Happy about that. Alright guys, the backrest sissy bar, luggage rack, or helmet rack, whatever you want to call it, is off. And the bike already looks better. So, yeah, step number one. Anyway, we are bagging and tagging all of our parts. We're obviously photographing as well. So anyway, we'll move on to the next thing, which is the seat removal. Okay, so here are two bolts that are holding on the seats on either side. So one this side, one the other side. So we'll go ahead and remove those. And then I know there's a center fastener at the bottom of the tank. So we'll tackle that next after we remove these two. And there's one little nut, acorn nut, star washer, and a washer under the center rear of the seat as well. And that's it for the seat. Only those 3 fasteners. I thought it might slide under this this tank mount at the front, but it doesn't. So anyway, we've got a little connector here for a quick connect for a battery charger, which is good. Obviously the battery under here and all the electronic packs, we're not going to disturb that at the moment. So we'll move on to the next thing. I think we'll probably start trying to remove the rear fender. That should be fun. I think what we'll do next is we'll actually undo this cover and we'll have a look at see if there's a snap connector for the rear connection for the rear harness to the lights, since I want to disconnect this harness to be able to get the fender off. So I'm not sure whether I need to connect it inside the disconnect it inside the fender, if there's a connector there, or if there's a connector up here. So we're going to take a quick look. Obviously it'll be easier if the connector is up here, because I'm going to be having to fiddle with the fender to try to unbolt it. Reach my arm up there and disconnect the connector if that's the case. Anyway, it looks like for the first start on the rear fender, I'm going to have to disconnect this rear rail. So we'll go ahead and figure out how we're going to do this, and we'll be back. Okay, the panel is off, and there's actually 2 screws on the side, on either side here, and the 1 screw up at the top. So we just removed that panel and set it aside. I did find the connector now for this rear harness, so we've just disconnected the connector, and we'll go ahead and we'll remove that from the grommets here. And that'll be the first step for removing this rear fender. Alright, we're going to start by removing this little triangular panel first, since that's going to obviously need to be painted as well. Then it looks like we've got at least 1, 2, 3 fasteners that are holding this fender to the bike. I believe the last 2 fenders are actually just holding the bracketry for the rear lights to the fender. So I think I can remove that after we get the fender off, but we'll see what we need to do after we remove these fasteners up here. So we'll go ahead and do that. Okay, so far so good. Just those 3 bolts per side to get the rear fender off. So here we are sitting here on the ground. No damage, so the rest of the ancillary items come off. Obviously there's some bolts on the inside, and there's going to be some connectors, probably not connectors, but there's going to be some wiring harness, probably looms inside there keeping the harness up against the top of the fender. I haven't flipped it over yet to take a look, but we'll do that once we get the bike stripped down. We'll come back and we'll remove all the components from the fender. So next panel I'm going to try to get off is the passenger side filler panel on this side. Now it's going to be a little tricky. I have a offset screwdriver. Hopefully I'll be able to get back down in here. Otherwise I'm going to have to remove the bracket for the muffler to be able to get that off. So I was thinking about removing the muffler anyway, just to get the rear tire off a little bit more easily, but looks like I have good enough access there to be able to do that, so I don't think I'm going to have to remove the muffler, which is a good thing. The less things I have to remove, the quicker this is going to be. Anyway, we'll see if I can get an offset screwdriver down in there, and we'll see if we can pop that panel off. I've decided to take the rear of the exhaust off. It's just too tight to get an offset screwdriver down in there or from underneath. At least the right size screwdriver. I can get a smaller offset in there, but it's just a little bit too small for the heads of the nut or the screw to be able to turn it, and I don't want to strip it, so I figured I'll just take the effort to remove the rear section of the exhaust. There's a couple little bolts here to secure this little decorative piece. So we're just taking those off, and I believe there's a clamp in behind, and we should be able to just, I've already done the 2 bolts for this bracket. I actually did that first, and I just loosened them off and tried to pull this bracket away a little bit. You can see it's moving, but I still don't have enough clearance to get that offset screwdriver in there. So we'll do the easy route, or the little harder route, I guess, and take the exhaust off. Hopefully it slides off the tube okay. We'll see when we get there. Alright, I didn't really want to, but the exhaust is now off in order to get access to that panel. It was just easier to remove the exhaust. So here it is over here on the floor, so no big deal. We've still kept the bracket to attach to the frame on it. So we just undid the bolts at the exhaust flanges and just dropped it off that way. So now we can remove that panel finally. Okay, we're on the driver's side front now, and the first thing I'm going to do is remove the brake caliper cover, which is here. Second thing I'm going to do is probably remove the speedometer cable, which is on the front on the other side. So we'll do those first things first. Probably want to remove the brake caliper as well, since you're going to be removing the wheel, or at least take it off the rotor. So we'll see what we need to do that. Then I'm not sure where to go from there. I'm not sure if this fender has to slide down or comes up. It's obviously grooved, channeled around the forks, so I may need to remove the actual tire before the fender will come off. So we'll figure it out. Here's the caliper cover plate removed, and we've got the caliper removed and just secured against the frame of the bike. There was also that little bracket that held the cable, which I've removed as well. So we'll move on to the next round of fasteners. I'm going to remove this one here. I've already removed this one, which also had the holder attached to it. I've also got one down here that looks like I need to remove, so we'll do this side, we'll move to the other. Okay, on the passenger side, this is where the Speedo cable is, so we're going to undo the Speedo cable nut, and we'll just lift that cable out. Then we're going to undo the bracket with the marker light, or the reflector on the side, and shear, and one more down here, and that should release the fender, hopefully. Okay, so the fender does not come off unless the front tire is removed, because it's got to come down. So we figured that out. So we've just got 2 bolts left in there loosely. So I guess we're going to go ahead and tackle the front tire. Now that everything's off, looks like there's a lock retainer over here, and obviously the large axle bolt on the other side. So I think we'll see what we do to get this off. Alright guys, quick update. Front tire, front fender are off. And they've joined the growing pile of parts over here. There's the tire assembly. There's the front fender. And yes, my mother does watch this channel. And she'll be happy to know I've just had the opportunity to use one of her father's, my grandfather's, tools to take the axle nut off the front axle of the bike. It's one of my grandfather's old wrenches with his initials on it. There you go, Mom. Alright, I guess we'll start on the rear tire now. So first thing I need to do on the passenger side is take the brake caliper bracket, or the brake caliper off. I don't believe I have to take the bracket off. We'll figure that out. I think I'm okay. It'll probably come off when I take the axle nut out, or the axle completely out. So anyway, we'll figure that out as we go along. So we'll break these caliper bolts first, and like I said, we'll swing that caliper out of the way. Okay, so far so good. Rear tire is off, no issues. And I guess the last thing we need to tackle now is the tank. Time to get a little messy, I think. We've got to drain that gas in the tank somehow. We've got to figure that out. I've got a pretty good idea on how to get this off. I know there's a screw in here that's got to come off. Obviously these have to come off. There are connectors behind here. I think there's a few bolts holding this on, so we'll figure that out along the way. I know you have to push this forward a little bit. I've been doing a little bit of reading online, so I think you have to push this forward and lift up to be able to get that off. So we'll figure that out, and we'll give you some progress updates when we get her done. Alright, Speedo is off and the warning lights are off. It was pretty easy, just 2 electrical connectors and the Speedo cable to the back of the speedometer. You can see there, I just had to undo. There are the 2 connectors for those. One's white, one's black, so you can't screw them up, otherwise I would have labeled them. So I see my front tank bolt here, which I've got to get to, and my rear tank bolt down here, and then I should be able to lift the tank up and access the fuel lines underneath. Again, I got to figure a way out how to drain what's in the tank. There's not a ton in there, but definitely enough to be messy. So this actually might not be as bad as I thought it was going to be. I was doing some research because I'm not familiar with this style of petcock. I'm familiar with more like old school dirt bike type stuff where there's, you know, an on and an off. So this one's got a reserve, obviously. PR stands for prime, so apparently that's for if your bike has been not started for extended periods of time, basically, or you've run out of gas and run the bike out of gas, you can actually put it on prime. And then the bottom one is on. So there is actually no off on this, and the reason why there's no off apparently is because there's a solenoid built into this which prevents the flow of gas when it's on. So if I pull this tube off, apparently there's not supposed to be any gas flowing out of here. That's technically in the off position when the bike's not running. So that should make that a little bit easier. We've got to remove this little line here. I think this is a little vacuum line, and there's supposed to be a couple vent lines up the front inside under the tank that we need to remove. And then of course the 2 tank bolts, and then that's pretty much about it. We should be able to lift the tank off. So anyway, let's go ahead and do that. We'll remove these lines that we're supposed to, and we'll try to find those vent lines underneath and remove those. And I'll bring it back when we've got the 2 bolts out and we're ready for liftoff. Actually, that wasn't too bad. It didn't get too much gas on me at all. There is only 1 vent line on this bike, and it runs over to the passenger side. So here's the vent line for that. So that was removed. And just the other 2 lines on this side. So that was pretty easy. And the 2 bolts, and it lifted right off. So no damage, so we're good, all good. The last thing I want to do is remove this panel here, which apparently behind that is the settings for the monoshock. So I'll be interested to see that. So we're going to take that off now. Looks like 1 Phillips screw. I'm not sure what else, but again, we'll figure it out. Well, that's not really what I expected to find behind there. So it looks like electrical, a few empty connections here, maybe for some auxiliary stuff. Anyway, we'll find out where that monoshock adjustment is. Gotta be around here somewhere. Well, I'll have to do some more reading on that. It may be behind this box, which has got a couple of bolts holding this in. This is where the toolkit's actually supposed to fit. So it may be behind there. Anyway, we'll leave that on there until we'll do a little bit of reading to find out where it actually is. So I think we're officially done disassembly, if you can believe that. It is 1:30. That's not too bad. So there it is. I guess we'll call that part 1, disassembly phase. And the next phase is to get some of the other, I guess, further disassembly done on the rear fender. For example, we need to take all the little bits off. That's going to be kind of getting more into prep for painting, I would say. So anyway, we'll bring you back when we figure out what we're going to do next. One thing I think we'll do definitely on the mechanical side while we've got the tank off is we're going to change the spark plugs. Looks like, I'm not even sure if you can change the plugs without having the tank off, but this one looks like it could be interesting way back in here. And that one is not so bad at the front there, but this rear one could be a bit of a bitch. So we'll probably do the spark plugs. Well, not probably, we'll do the spark plugs. I've actually got spark plugs for it. So we'll do the plug change before we put the tank back on. So that'll be the probably only mechanical bit we do on this while we're here. Maybe check this is the coolant tank, I'm assuming, yeah, radiator top tank. We can also check the coolant level while we're here, and if we need to add some, we can add. It is a liquid cooled bike. You see a little electric fan there mounted on the rad. So anyway, that's it for now, guys. We'll probably upload this so you can see where we're at. We'll call this part 1 disassembly, and then we'll start a new series of videos. Thanks for watching.